The grand chamber of Nexus Prime stretched so high that clouds formed near its ceiling. Thousands of alien delegates sat in their designated sections, their bodies ranging from gaseous beings contained in force fields to massive, crystalline creatures that hummed with internal light. At the center of it all stood Ambassador Ji-Won Kim, a human woman in a simple black suit that seemed almost defiant in its plainness, compared to the elaborate garments worn by other species. She had been standing there for 3 hours. The Galactic Council had a tradition of making lesser species wait. It was a power play, a reminder of where humanity stood in the cosmic hierarchy. Ji-Won's feet ached, but she refused to show any sign of discomfort. Captain Minho Park stood behind her, his military uniform crisped despite the long wait. He caught her eye and gave the smallest nod of encouragement. Finally, Consul Prime Valtrax rose from his massive throne. The insectoid being towered over everyone, his chitinous armor gleaming under the chamber's artificial suns. When he spoke, his voice boomed through translation devices embedded in every seat. "The human delegation may now present their petition," Valtrax announced. His mandibles clicking with what might have been amusement, Ji-Won stepped forward. She had practiced this moment 1,000 times, but her heart still raced. 50 years. For 50 years, humanity had endured the Council's condescension and exploitation. Earth paid tribute that drained their resources. Human colonies were confined to the smallest, least desirable sectors of space. Human technology was deemed too dangerous and confiscated. Human culture was mocked as primitive. And now the Council wanted human blood. "Council Prime," Ji-Won began, her voice steady. "I come before you today to discuss the Conscription Act you passed 3 cycles ago." A wave of chittering, buzzing, and electronic laughter rippled through the chamber. The Conscription Act demanded that humanity provide 2 million soldiers for the Council's war against the Void Swarm. These soldiers would serve in forward positions, the most dangerous assignments, while Council species remained safely in command positions. "There is nothing to discuss," Chancellor Rixon interrupted. The reptilian warrior rose from his seat, his scales gleaming red in the light. "The act is law. Humanity will comply, as all member species must." Ji-Won turned to face him. "And if we refuse?" The chamber fell silent. Such a question had never been asked before. Species didn't refuse the Council. It simply wasn't done. Valtrax's mandibles spread wide. Refuse? Amusing. Without the Council's protection, humanity would fall to any number of threats. Without our trade networks, your colonies would starve. Without our technology licenses, you would regress to your pre-space age. He leaned forward. "You need us, Ambassador Kim. We do not need you. Then you won't mind if we leave." The words hung in the air like a physical thing. Dr. Hanalei, standing beside Captain Park, pulled out a data tablet. She tapped it once, and holographic screens materialized throughout the chamber. Evidence. Decades of carefully documented evidence. The Council has systematically exploited humanity since first contact. Ji-Won continued, her voice growing stronger. "You've taken 90% of Earth's rare minerals as tribute, while providing minimal protection. You've suppressed our technological development by forcing us to purchase inferior Council technology at inflated prices. You've restricted our expansion while allowing other species to claim territory we discovered." The hologram shifted, showing trade agreements, military reports, and diplomatic communications. Every piece proved the same thing. The Council had never treated humanity as equals. "This is outrageous," another delegate shouted. "The Council uplifts primitive species out of generosity." Generosity? Ji-Won's laugh was bitter. "You've turned us into a resource colony. But here's what you don't know. While you kept us distracted with unfair treaties and impossible demands, we were preparing for this day." Valtrax's eyes narrowed. Preparing what, exactly? Our independence. Ji-Wan reached into her jacket and pulled out a physical document, sealed with Earth's emblem. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. We will no longer pay tribute. We will no longer accept your restrictions. We will no longer send our children to die in your wars. She placed the document on the podium before her. The chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens shouted in hundreds of languages. Some demanded immediate military action. Others laughed, treating it as an elaborate joke. Captain Minho Park stepped forward, his hand resting on his sidearm. The gesture was subtle but clear. The human delegation was leaving, and anyone who tried to stop them would regret it. Valtrax raised a massive claw, and the chamber quieted. You make a grave mistake, Ambassador. Without the Council, you are nothing. Your species is young, inexperienced, weak. Give you one standard year to reconsider this foolishness. When your economy collapses, when pirates raid your colonies, when you beg us to return, we will remember your arrogance. We'll take our chances, Ji-Wan replied. She turned her back on the Council Prime, a gesture of disrespect that made several aliens gasp. Dr. Hanalei and Captain Park fell in beside her as they walked toward the exit. As they crossed the threshold, Ji-Wan heard Valtrax's final words. Let them go. We'll see how long human pride lasts when they face reality. The walk to their ship felt like miles, though it was only a few hundred meters. Ji-Wan's hands trembled now that the confrontation was over. They had done it. After decades of planning, of secret preparations, of careful documentation, humanity had finally declared its independence. Captain Park guided them to the docking bay, where the Earth vessel Indomitable waited. The ship was larger than standard diplomatic craft, its hull painted in Earth's blue and green. As they boarded, the crew snapped to attention. Captain, Minho said to his first officer, take us home. Maximum speed. The Indomitable detached from Nexus Prime with a hiss of releasing clamps. Through the viewport, Ji-Wan watched the massive station shrink behind them. Other alien vessels moved aside, giving them a wide berth. Word had already spread about what happened in the council chamber. Do you think we did the right thing? Dr. Hana Lee asked quietly. Ji-Wan thought about humanity's children, about the colonies struggling under impossible tribute demands, about the scientists whose research was confiscated, about the dignity that had been stripped away piece by piece for 50 years. Yes, she said firmly. Whatever comes next, at least we'll face it as free people. Captain Park checked his communications console. Ambassador, encrypted messages are coming in from all Earth stations and colonies. They're all transmitting the same phrase. What phrase? Protocol Exodus is now active. Ji-Wan smiled. Throughout human space, the plan they had spent decades preparing was beginning. Humanity was coming home, gathering its strength, and preparing for whatever the galaxy would throw at them. The Council thought they were weak and foolish. They would soon learn otherwise. As the Indomitable jumped to faster-than-light speed, racing toward Earth, the galaxy began to stir. The impossible had happened. A species had defied the Galactic Council and survived the encounter. Other civilizations watched and wondered. If humanity could stand up to the Council, what did that mean for everyone else? The universe was about to change, and at the center of that change stood Earth. 6 months had passed since Earth severed ties with the Galactic Council, and the galaxy was watching with confused curiosity. Human ships that once traveled regularly through alien space had vanished. Trade convoys stopped arriving at Council ports. Even Admiral Yoonji Choi stood on the bridge of the newly revealed battleship Defiance, watching construction drones work on its sister ships. The shipyard hung in the shadow of Saturn's rings, invisible to casual observation, protected by stealth fields that had been active for 20 years. Hundreds of ships floated in various stages of completion. each one incorporating technology the Council had never seen. "Status report," she commanded. Her tactical officer, a young man named Kyungmin, consulted his displays. 72 capital ships comeback ready. Another 140 in final stages. The outer colonies report similar numbers. Total fleet strength approaching 800 vessels. Yoonji nodded. 800 ships. The Council knew about maybe 50 of them. The outdated vessels Earth had been allowed to operate openly. The rest had been built in secret, constructed in hidden facilities, funded through careful economic planning that the Council had never noticed. Humanity had been preparing for this moment since the day they joined the Council and realized the truth of their situation. On the lunar surface, Dr. Taeyang Seo walked through laboratories buried deep beneath the gray dust. His team of scientists worked around the clock, finalizing the technologies that would give humanity its edge. The Council had superior numbers and centuries of experience, but humans had something else: desperation and creativity. "Doctor, the quantum entanglement tests are successful," his assistant reported. "We can coordinate fleet movements across light years with zero lag." Taeyang smiled. The Council's fleets relied on traditional faster-than-light communication with its inevitable delays. Human ships could act as a single organism, responding to threats instantly. It was a game-changer, and the Council had no idea it existed. In the weapon development section, teams were perfecting plasma containment systems that made human weapons hit harder than anything their size should. Human shields used adaptive frequencies that made them nearly impossible to penetrate with standard Council weapons. Human armor incorporated self-repairing nanomaterials. Every advantage was small on its own, but together they added up to something formidable. Governor Junho Yoon managed the outer colonies, and his job had become infinitely harder since Protocol Exodus activated. The colony of New Sol, orbiting a red dwarf 30 light-years from Earth, had relied heavily on Council trade. Luxury goods, advanced medical equipment, entertainment, rare foods, all of it had come from alien markets. Now, the colony had to be self-sufficient. "People are complaining," his aide informed him. "Food synthesizers are working overtime. We've converted entertainment facilities into manufacturing plants. There's rationing on everything from coffee to computing power." Junho looked out at the colony through his office window. Prefabricated buildings stretched across the valley, housing 500,000 humans who had come here seeking a better life. Now he was asking them to sacrifice for Earth's freedom. "Call a town assembly," he said. "Tonight. I need to speak to everyone." That evening, the colony's central square filled with people. Junho stood on a platform, facing thousands of tired, worried faces. Some were angry. Some were scared. All of them deserved the truth. "I know these past months have been hard," Junho began. "You came to the stars expecting opportunity, and instead you're working longer hours for fewer comforts. You have every right to be upset." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. "But I want you to understand why we're doing this. For 50 years, the Council has treated us like children. They took our resources and gave us nothing in return. They restricted where we could go, what we could build, how we could live. And when they demanded our sons and daughters die in their war, we finally said no." He paused, letting his words sink in. "What we're building here, what Earth is building throughout human space, is the foundation of true independence. We're not doing this because it's easy. We're doing it because our children deserve to grow up free." The crowd was quiet now, listening. "The Council thinks we'll collapse. They're waiting for us to come crawling back, begging to rejoin. But we're not going to give them that satisfaction. We're going to prove that humanity doesn't need masters." A woman in the front row stood up. "What happens if they attack us?" "Then we fight," Juno said simply. Every colony is being fortified. Defense platforms are being installed. Militia training is mandatory. If the Council wants to force us back, they'll find we're not as helpless as they think. Later that night, a young man approached Juno. Governor, I want you to know something. My father died working in the tribute mines, extracting rare metals for the Council. They worked him until his body gave out, and then they didn't even send his remains home. They said it wasn't cost-effective. The young man's eyes were hard. Whatever sacrifices we're making now, they're nothing compared to what the Council took from us. I'll work triple shifts if it means my children never have to bow to those aliens. Junho shook his hand. This was why they would win. Not because humanity had better weapons or more ships, but because they had something to fight for. Meanwhile, Captain Hyan Nam piloted his cargo vessel between colonies, transporting supplies now that Council trade had ceased. His ship was old and slow, a civilian craft that had never been meant for long-haul routes. But these days, every ship was needed. Captain, we're being scanned, his co-pilot warned. Hyan checked his sensors. An alien merchant vessel, probably hoping to find humans desperate enough to trade at exploitative rates. The Council had encouraged such merchants, hoping economic pressure would force Earth's surrender. Ignore them, Hyan said. We're not interested. The alien ship sent a communication request. Hyan deleted it without responding. Humanity had made its choice, and there was no going back now. As weeks passed, the transformation of human space became more dramatic. Industrial output increased as civilians volunteered for extra shifts. Military training became universal. Every colony, every station, every habitat was preparing for the conflict everyone knew was coming. The Council sent reconnaissance probes into human territory, trying to assess Earth's capabilities. The probes never returned. Human defense networks destroyed them instantly, giving away nothing. Some alien merchants who ignored warnings and entered human space disappeared completely. Officially, Earth claimed no knowledge of their fate. Unofficially, those ships were either destroyed or captured, their technology studied and reverse-engineered. The galaxy began to whisper. Something was happening in human space, something big. But without direct observation, no one knew exactly what. Then came the incident that changed everything. A Council patrol fleet, 30 ships including 2 dreadnoughts, entered human territory to remind Earth of its obligations. They expected to intimidate a few civilian stations and retreat. Making a show of force. Instead, they encountered Fleet Marshal Do Yoon-beek's border defense fleet. The battle lasted 47 minutes. When it was over, the Council patrol fleet had ceased to exist. Every ship was either destroyed or disabled. Human casualties were minimal. Admiral Yoonji received the report on the Defiance's bridge. She read it twice, then looked at her officers. Distribute this to all commands. Let everyone see what we're capable of. The footage of the battle spread through human space within hours. Civilians who had been uncertain about the cost of independence watched human ships move with impossible coordination, their weapons tearing through Council shields like paper. They saw what humanity had built in secret. Morale soared. On Earth, in the underground command center beneath Geneva, President Minji Kwon reviewed the same footage. Her military advisors stood around the holographic display, analyzing every second of combat. The Council will respond, her defense minister warned. This was humiliating for them. Let them come, Minji replied. We're ready. And humanity was ready. In shipyards throughout human space, the final vessels were nearing completion. On Earth and its colonies, citizens prepared for war with determination born from 50 years of accumulated grievances. Scientists were finalizing weapon systems that would surprise any enemy. Earth had severed its ties with the Galactic Council, and the universe was about to learn that humanity would not be subjugated. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going on for 6 hours, and tempers were running hot. Council Prime Veltrax watched as delegates shouted at each other in dozens of languages, the translation systems struggling to keep up. The loss of the patrol fleet had shaken the Council to its core. 30 ships. Chancellor Rixon roared, his red scales darkening with rage. 30 Council warships destroyed by a species we uplifted from barbarism. This is an insult that demands blood. Other delegates agreed, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of demands for revenge. But not everyone was convinced that violence was the answer. Perhaps we should reconsider our approach, suggested a delegate from a water-dwelling species. The humans clearly have capabilities we didn't anticipate. Coward, Rixon spat. They have one small fleet. We have thousands of ships. We crush them now before other species get similar ideas. Valtrax finally stood, and the chamber quieted. The Chancellor is correct about one thing. If we allow this defiance to stand, others will follow. We must act, and we must act decisively. He gestured, and a holographic display showed the mustering of a massive fleet. 500 warships, drawn from our most powerful members. We will enter human space and force their surrender. They will see that rebellion brings only destruction. The vote was swift. The Council authorized the punitive expedition with overwhelming support. Only a handful of delegates abstained. Those who remembered that overconfidence had already cost them. 30 ships docked. What the Council didn't know was that Commodore Sora, Han's stealth reconnaissance ships, had been watching Nexus Prime for months. Every Council meeting, every military movement, every strategic discussion was recorded and transmitted back to Earth. Human intelligence knew about the 500-ship fleet before most. Council delegates did dock in the command center beneath Geneva. Admiral Yunji Choi reviewed the intelligence with her top officers. 500 ships. They're committing a quarter of their total military strength. Can we win? President Minji Quan asked directly. Yunji considered the question carefully. In a straight fight, ship to ship, we'd lose. They have numbers and firepower on their side. But we don't have to fight fair. She pulled up a tactical display. We know their approach vector. We know their command structure. We know how they fight because we've studied them for 50 years. They know nothing about us. What do you propose? We let them come to us. We choose the battlefield. And we show them what human innovation really means. Fleet Marshal Do-Yoon Beek received his orders with grim satisfaction. He would command the defense, and he had been given carte blanche to use whatever tactics necessary. His fleet of 50 ships would face 10 times their number, but he wasn't worried that the Council fleet entered human space with arrogance that bordered on comedy. They broadcast demands for Earth's surrender on all frequencies. They moved in tight formation, a show of overwhelming force meant to terrify any opposition. Do-Yoon watched them approach from his flagship, the Unbreakable. All ships, quantum entanglement communication check. In perfect synchronization, all 50 human ships confirmed ready status. This was the advantage the Council couldn't see. While alien fleets coordinated with light speed delays, human ships communicated instantaneously across any distance. They moved as one mind, reacting to threats before the enemy could adapt. Weapon systems armed. Adaptive shielding active. All ships engage at will. The battle began with the Council's standard tactic, a massive alpha strike meant to overwhelm enemy defenses. Thousands of energy weapons fired simultaneously, enough firepower to vaporize a small moon. But the human ships weren't where the targeting computers expected. Using quantum communication, they had coordinated microjumps the instant before the weapons fired. The massive barrage hit empty space before the Council ships could retarget. Human vessels appeared at point-blank range throughout the enemy formation. Their weapons used resonance frequencies discovered by Dr. Taiyang Sio's team, frequencies that caused Council shields to collapse catastrophically. Council capital ships exploded under concentrated fire. Their armor, designed to withstand conventional weapons, simply melted under the new plasma systems. Reform formation. The Council commander screamed. Defensive pattern Delta. But forming a defensive pattern required communication, and human ships were jamming their frequencies while maintaining perfect coordination through their own quantum network. Council vessels crashed into each other, commanders shouting contradictory orders, sensors overwhelmed by human electronic warfare. Do-Yoon watched the chaos with satisfaction. Target their command ships. Let's remove their ability to coordinate. Human missiles, using adaptive AI that made them nearly impossible to intercept, streaked toward the largest Council vessels. 3 dreadnoughts exploded in the span of 2 minutes. The Council fleet's command structure evaporated. Chancellor Rixon was aboard one of the surviving capital ships, and he couldn't believe what he was seeing. His species had been warriors for millennia. They had conquered dozens of worlds, and now they were being torn apart by humans, a species they had considered barely civilized. All ships focus fire on a single target. He commanded. Overwhelming force on one ship at a time. It was a sound strategy, but executing it required time and coordination. The human fleet didn't give them either. Using their quantum communication, human ships rotated positions constantly, damaged vessels falling back, while fresh ones took their place. Council gunners couldn't maintain target locks. Meanwhile, human weapons continued their devastating work. Every shot was calculated, targeted at weak points identified by decades of intelligence gathering. Council ships that should have taken hours to destroy fell in minutes. 3 hours into the battle, the Council fleet had lost half its strength. The survivors were scattered, disorganized, desperately trying to retreat. Do-Yoon considered pursuing them, finishing the job completely. "Sir, orders from Geneva," his communications officer reported. "Let them go." Do-Yoon understood. This wasn't about destroying the Council fleet. It was about sending a message. He gave the order to cease fire, and human ships allowed the survivors to flee. The footage of the battle was broadcast across all galactic channels. Every civilization watched as 500 Council warships were devastated by 50 human vessels. They saw the legendary Council military humiliated, defeated, sent running by a species they had dismissed as inferior. Ambassador Ji-Won Kim appeared on every screen in the galaxy, her message simple and clear. Earth seeks peace, but we will no longer accept subjugation. We offer partnership to any who approach us as equals. To those who come as conquerors, you will find only defeat. On Nexus Prime, Council Prime Valtrax watched the same footage in his private chambers. His carefully constructed image of Council invincibility had been shattered. Worse, he could see the political consequences already unfolding. Throughout the galaxy, minor species who had suffered under Council rule were watching. They saw that the mighty could be challenged. They saw that freedom was possible. His communications console lit up with messages from allied species, all asking the same questions. How did this happen? What is Earth's true military strength? Should we reconsider our alliances? Valtrax had no good answers. The humans had deceived them all, building their strength in secret while pretending to be weak. Now that strength was revealed, and the galaxy would never see Earth the same way again. On Earth, citizens celebrated in the streets. They had won. Against overwhelming odds, humanity had proven it could defend itself. The jubilation was tempered by knowledge that this was only the beginning. The Council wouldn't stop with one defeat. But for now, humanity had earned something they hadn't possessed in 50 years. Respect. Admiral Yoonji Choi stood on the bridge of the Defiance, reading reports of the battle's aftermath. Her fleet had performed flawlessly, but she felt no joy. This victory would only escalate the conflict. "Admiral, message from President Kwan," her communications officer announced. Minji's face appeared on the screen. "Congratulations, Admiral. You've given humanity hope. Hope is expensive, Madam President. The Council won't accept this. They'll come again, with more ships better prepared." "I know. But today, we proved something important. We proved we can win." Yoonji nodded. They had won a battle, perhaps even damaged the Council's prestige irreparably. But the war for humanity's freedom was just beginning. The small alien delegation approached Earth's orbital station with visible nervousness. Their ship was barely functional, held together with improvised repairs. These were the Talveri, a species that had served the Galactic Council for 300 years. And they were desperate. Young-Soo Park, a human diplomat whose mother had been one of the rare aliens who settled on Earth, met them in the docking bay. He had been born on Earth, raised with human values, but his appearance carried features of both species. It made him perfect for this delicate work. "Welcome," he said in their language. "You're safe here." The lead Talveri, an elderly female named Kessa, nearly collapsed with relief. "We didn't know if you would see us. The Council forbids anyone from approaching Earth." "The Council doesn't control who we talk to anymore," Young-Soo replied. "Come, let's discuss why you've risked so much to come here." In the conference room, Kessa explained their situation. The Talveri homeworld was dying, its resources exhausted by Council tribute demands. They had begged for relief, for permission to reduce their payments, but the Council refused. Now their people were starving, and rebellion seemed like the only option. "We saw what you did," Kessa said. "You stood up to them and won. Can you help us do the same?" Young-Soo recorded everything, then transmitted it back to Earth. Within hours, the request reached President Minji Kwan's desk. She called an emergency cabinet meeting to discuss it. "If we help them, we're declaring ourselves an alternative to the Council," her foreign minister warned. "Every oppressed species will come to us." "Isn't that exactly what we want?" Ambassador Ji-won Kim argued. "We can't fight the Council alone. But if we build a coalition of free species, we become something they can't simply crush." "It's a huge risk," the defense minister countered. "Every species we protect is another target we have to defend." President Minji listened to the debate, then made her decision. "We didn't break free from the Council just to watch others suffer. Send word to the Talveri. We'll help them." The announcement sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Earth was offering protection to any species that declared independence from the Council. It was an open challenge to everything the Council represented. Within 2 weeks, 17 civilizations formally withdrew from the Council and requested Earth's protection. They were all minor species, civilizations that had been exploited for centuries. But their defection represented something profound. The Council's authority was breaking. Council Prime Valtrax watched his carefully constructed order crumble. Trade networks were failing as species stopped paying tribute. Military alliances were collapsing as members questioned whether the Council could actually protect them. The economy was in chaos. "We need to respond with overwhelming force," Chancellor Rixan demanded at yet another emergency session. "Crush the humans and their pathetic allies. Make an example so terrible that no one dares rebel again." For once, Valtrax agreed. "Assemble the Armada. Every ship we can muster. This ends now." The call went out to every Council military. Thousands of vessels began gathering, the largest war fleet in galactic history. Species that had been enemies for centuries put aside their differences, united by fear of what Earth represented. Change. Fleet Admiral Jaewon Lim received the intelligence reports with growing concern. We're looking at over 3,000 ships, he told his staff. Even with our advantages, we can't fight that many. But Earth wasn't alone anymore. The Tal'Vere offered their biological technology, weapons that used living organisms to devastating effect. The Corvash, another liberated species, contributed their expertise in exotic matter, allowing human ships to improve their shields exponentially. The Eldrin brought their knowledge of alternative physics, opening new possibilities for propulsion and energy generation. Human engineers worked alongside alien scientists, combining technologies in ways the rigid Council had never imagined. The Council saw species as separate, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. Earth saw them as partners, their differences creating something greater than the sum of their parts. Dr. Taeyong Seo led the integration efforts, his laboratories now filled with alien equipment and researchers. We're learning more in these few weeks than we did in decades under the Council, he told Admiral Yunji. They kept us isolated on purpose. When species work together freely, innovation explodes. The coalition grew stronger daily. Human military discipline combined with Tal'Vere biological weapons. Human quantum communication merged with Corvash exotic matter shields. Human creativity mixed with Eldrin theoretical physics. Governor Junho Yoon, now coordinating colony defense across multiple species, watched the transformation with amazement. We're building something new, he told his staff. Not a council based on dominance, but a real alliance based on mutual respect. Not everyone in the coalition trusted each other at first. Centuries of council-enforced isolation had created suspicion between species. But working together toward a common goal began breaking down those barriers. Tal'Vere engineer and a human technician figured out how to triple the efficiency of plasma cannons by combining their approaches. A Corvash pilot taught human tactics she had learned fighting pirates in forgotten sectors. An Eldrin physicist explained concepts that opened entirely new avenues of research for human scientists. Captain Hyen Nam, still flying supply runs, now transported goods between multiple species. He watched aliens and humans working side by side on loading docks, sharing meals in station cafeterias, forming friendships across species lines. This is what the Council feared, his co-pilot observed. If species realize they don't need masters, what happens to the Council? The Council's armada approached the border zones slowly, gathering strength. Chancellor Rixon commanded from his flagship, a massive dreadnought that had never seen defeat. He was confident. 3,000 ships against maybe 200. The rebellion would be crushed. What he didn't know was that Fleet Admiral Jiwon Lim had been studying council tactics for months. He knew how they fought, how they thought, how they coordinated. More importantly, he understood their weakness. They had never fought a truly united enemy. The coalition fleet gathered at a location of Earth's choosing, a star system with unique gravitational properties. The Eldrin had explained how to use those properties as a weapon, and human engineers had built devices to exploit them. All ships, this is Admiral Lim, Jaewon broadcast to the entire coalition. We're about to face the largest military force ever assembled. They expect us to break, to scatter, to beg for mercy. They're wrong. He paused, looking at the faces of his bridge crew, human and alien working together. We fight not for glory or conquest. We fight for the simple right to be free, to live without masters. Every species here chose freedom over security, dignity over subjugation. Today, we proved that choice was right. On Earth, billions watched the fleet positioning. In colonies scattered across space, families gathered around screens. On newly liberated worlds, species that had never known freedom held their breath. The Council Armada appeared at the edge of the system, so massive it blotted out the stars. 3,000 warships representing dozens of species, all commanded by the Council's finest officers. Admiral Lim watched them approach. All ships, prepare for combat. For freedom. The coalition fleet responded with a unified transmission. Voices in dozens of languages, all saying the same thing. For freedom. The battle that would determine the galaxy's future was about to begin. Ambassador Ji-won Kim watched from Earth, knowing that everything they had built, everything they had sacrificed, came down to this moment. If they lost, the Council would crush every rebel species. If they won, the galaxy would change forever. The fleets moved toward each other, and the universe held its breath. President Min-ji Kwan sat in the command center, surrounded by military advisors and alien ambassadors. The coalition they had built represented something unprecedented. Dozens of species united not by fear or force, but by shared desire for freedom. Whatever happens, she said quietly, we've already changed the galaxy. They can't put this back the way it was. On both sides, ships prepared for combat. The Council Armada confident in its overwhelming strength. The coalition fleet determined to fight for something greater than themselves. And throughout the galaxy, other species watched and wondered, could freedom really triumph over tyranny? The answer would be written in the battle to come. The first shots of the Battle of Free Space lit up the void like a second sun. 3,000 Council warships opened fire simultaneously, their combined weapons creating a wall of energy that should have vaporized anything in its path. But the coalition fleet, guided by quantum-coordinated computers and human tactical genius, had already moved. Captain Bora Kim led her fighter squadron through the chaos with precision that bordered on supernatural. Her small craft danced between capital ship fire, her weapons targeting the sensor arrays of Council dreadnoughts. Without sensors, the massive ships became blind, shooting at shadows, while real threats slipped past their defenses. All wings, follow my lead, Bora transmitted. Target their coordination nodes. Make them fight individually, not as a fleet. Her squadron, a mix of human pilots and brave aliens from liberated species, executed the plan flawlessly. Council commanders had never faced an enemy that could coordinate so perfectly across such distances. Their rigid tactical doctrine crumbled against the fluid, adaptive style the coalition employed. Admiral Jae-won Lim watched the battle unfold from his flagship's bridge. The gravitational anomalies the Eldrin had identified were working perfectly. Council ships trying to maneuver found their paths unpredictable, their formations breaking apart as space itself became treacherous. Deploy the singularity mines, he ordered. Dr. Taiyang Sio's ultimate weapon activated. Devices no larger than a human fist created temporary micro-black holes throughout the Council formation. The effect was devastating. Entire sections of the Council Armada simply ceased to exist, pulled into gravitational singularities that vanished seconds. Later, Chancellor Rixan roared in fury as he watched his fleet torn apart. This is impossible. How do they have such weapons? His tactical officer, trembling with fear, reported more bad news. Sir, their ships are using some kind of instantaneous communication. We can't intercept their orders or jam their coordination. They're fighting as one mind. Then we use numbers, Rixan snarled. All ships, concentrated assault on their flagship. Kill their admiral, and they'll fall apart. 1,000 Council ships redirected their fire toward Admiral Lim's vessel. The amount of firepower was staggering, enough to crack a planet. But the coalition had anticipated this move. Using technology adapted from Korvash exotic matter research, human ships could briefly shift partially out of normal space. The massive barrage passed through the Admiral's flagship like it was a ghost. Then the ship rematerialized, completely undamaged. Council gunners stared at their displays in disbelief. How could they fight an enemy that could simply ignore their weapons? The battle raged for hours. Council ships had superior numbers, But the coalition had superior coordination, superior tactics, and most importantly, superior motivation. Every coalition fighter knew exactly what they were fighting for. Council forces were there because they were ordered to be, because their governments demanded it. Because tradition required it, that difference mattered. A Talveri captain used biological weapons her species had developed in secret, releasing clouds of microscopic organisms that ate through Council hull armor. A Corvash engineer overloaded his shield generators, creating an energy pulse that disabled dozens of nearby enemy ships. An Eldrin scientist manipulated gravity fields to send enemy missiles back at their launchers. And through it all, human ships coordinated the chaos, their quantum communication network turning a collection of different species into a single, deadly organism. Captain Bora Kim's fighter took a hit during a strafing run. Her ship tumbled out of control, systems failing. She prepared to eject, to become another casualty of war. Then a Talveri frigate appeared beside her, its tractor beam catching her fighter, pulling her to safety. "We've got you, Captain," the Talveri commander transmitted. "You humans saved us. We won't let you die alone." That moment, repeated thousands of times across the battlefield, told the real story of the battle. This wasn't just military coordination. This was species choosing to sacrifice for each other, to protect their allies, to fight for a cause greater than themselves. On the third day of battle, as Council casualties mounted into the thousands and coalition losses remained remarkably light, Council Prime Veltrax appeared on all communication channels. "This is madness," he broadcast. "Both sides are bleeding. For what? Pride? Principle? Let us end this senseless violence." Admiral Lim considered the offer. His fleet was tired, ammunition running low, ships damaged despite their technological advantages. But they were winning. The Council Armada was shattered, scattered, its command structure in chaos. He opened a channel to President Minji Quan on Earth. "Your orders, Madam President?" Minji looked at the faces of her cabinet, then at the alien ambassadors standing with them. "What do you think?" she asked them. Kessa, the Talveri elder who had first come to Earth begging for help, spoke for all of them. "We came to you not seeking masters, but partners. If you show mercy now, you prove we were right to trust you." Minji nodded and turned back to the screen. "Admiral, offer terms. Ceasefire and withdrawal, followed by negotiations for a new galactic order." J1 broadcast the terms to the Council fleet. "Withdraw now, and we'll let you go. Continue fighting, and we'll finish what you started. Choose." Chancellor Rixan wanted to continue. His warrior pride demanded it. But as he looked at the remains of his once mighty fleet, he realized the truth. They had lost. Not just this battle, but everything. The Council's myth of invincibility was broken forever. "Council Prime," Rixan transmitted privately. "We cannot win this." Veltrax's mandibles drooped in defeat. "I know." The armistice was broadcast across the galaxy. The largest war fleet ever assembled had been defeated by a coalition of species the Council had dismissed as weak and primitive. The impossible had happened. In the weeks that followed, negotiations began for what would become the Commonwealth of Free Worlds. Ambassador Jiwon Kim led the human delegation, working with representatives from dozens of species to create something unprecedented, a truly equal alliance of civilizations. The Commonwealth's founding principles were simple. No species would rule another. Technology would be shared freely. Trade would be fair. Disputes would be resolved through dialogue, not force. Any species could join by choice and leave by choice. Not every Council species joined immediately. Some, like Chancellor Rixan's people, clung to their old hierarchies. But dozens of civilizations, seeing Earth's example, chose freedom. The galactic economy reorganized itself around the new reality. President Minji Quan stood on Earth's surface, watching alien diplomats and human officials mingle at the Commonwealth's founding ceremony. Representatives from over 50 species had gathered, each one there by choice, each one equal. "We did it," Ambassador Jiwan said, standing beside her. "We actually changed the galaxy." "We started the change," Minji corrected. "Building something better will take generations." On a stage, a young human child and an alien child from a newly liberated species planted a tree together, symbolizing the hope that different species could grow together. Their roots intertwined. Dr. Taiyang Co., no longer working on weapons, but on peaceful technology exchanges, watched with satisfaction. "Humans didn't conquer the galaxy," he mused. "We freed it." Admiral Yoonji Choi, commanding the Commonwealth Defense Force, read reports from the outer edges of known space. The Void Swarm, the extragalactic threat the Council had been fighting, was approaching faster than predicted. But now, instead of a divided galaxy of suspicious species, there was a united front. She smiled. Let them come. The Commonwealth would be ready. Captain Bora Kim, recovering from her injuries, taught mixed squadrons of human and alien pilots. She watched them work together, different species learning from each other, and felt pride. This was what freedom looked like. Governor Jun Ho-yoon's colony, New Seoul, thrived as a Commonwealth hub. Species mixed freely, trading goods and ideas. Children of different species played together in the streets. The hardships of the past year seemed worth it now. 5 years after Earth severed ties with the Galactic Council, the galaxy was fundamentally different. The old order of dominance and exploitation had been replaced by cooperation and mutual respect. Not everywhere, not completely, but the change was real and growing. In a classroom on Earth, a teacher explained to students how their world had stood up to an empire and sparked a revolution. "We didn't do it because we were stronger," the teacher said. "We did it because we believed all beings deserve dignity and freedom. And when we stood up for ourselves, others found the courage to stand up too." One student raised her hand. "What happened to the Galactic Council?" "Some species still follow it," the teacher explained. "But it's not the power it once was. Most of the galaxy has joined the Commonwealth or formed their own free alliances. The universe learned that no one has the right to rule others." As the lesson continued, in space above Earth, warships from a dozen species trained together. Human vessels flew alongside Talveri bioships and Korvash exotic matter cruisers. They prepared for the coming threat of the Void Swarm, but they did so as allies, not as masters and servants. Ambassador Jiwon Kim stood at a viewport on the Commonwealth's new headquarters station, watching those ships maneuver. She remembered standing before the Council, declaring humanity's independence, unsure if they would survive the gamble. They had not only survived, they had inspired a galaxy. The universe had descended into panic when Earth severed ties with the Galactic Council. But from that panic emerged something beautiful. A galaxy where freedom was possible, where different species could work together as equals, where the future belonged to those brave enough to choose it. And it all started with one species saying a simple word. No, Earth's revolution proved that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't military might or ancient authority. It was the unbreakable will of beings who refused to accept chains, who believed in something better, who dared to stand up and fight for freedom. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly as it should be.